So last week we were searching for a silver lining. Wade, we sit here a week later. We hoped it wouldn't be an eventful one, but by all intents and purposes, the Proteas have been knocked out of the World Cup. Wednesday was obviously disappointing defeat to New Zealand. Another result that didn't go their way. Another game where small moments just kind of where they let themselves down. The batting was stop-start. They never looked to have any real intent against New Zealand. They fell what Faf du Plessis said was 20 runs short. I think probably they were 30, 40 runs short. And then the bowling it just wasn't enough there was just not enough penetration, I thought, to really bowl New Zealand out, which was the only way they were going to win. What have you made of the aftermath of another failed and disappointing Proteas campaign?
Yeah, I think this one will sting more than most. The pre-tournament talk of us not being favourites, I think, set us up for a good tournament where we could beat dark horses. But that match against New Zealand showed how far we've really slipped. As you say, lack of penetration up front. They saw off Kagiso Rabada. Tahir didn't take a wicket. Kane Williamson batted through. Yeah. We failed to show any of that in any of the games we've played so far, and that's really shown where this side really falls in line in terms of previous sides. I know they were much weaker. ICC rankings say there's actually 5 really good players over the past couple of years. So this one will sting, and I think that the fallout will be dramatic.
Yeah, I think going into the World Cup, like you say, probably the Proteas were dark horses, but there was the potential for maybe 4 or 5 players to be match winners. So I thought that maybe Quinton de Kock, Faf du Plessis would be the 2 in the batting. Both for me haven't pitched up or performed to the level that they were capable of. And then probably in the bowling, one would have been Dale Steyn, who was ruled out with injury. The other would have been Rabada and Tahir. Now I think Rabada and Tahir probably been 2 of the best bowlers, but they still haven't always had the massive penetration of a game-changing 3 or 4 wickets. I mean, obviously Tahir did it against Afghanistan, but beyond that, there hasn't quite been that match-winning performance from any of those 4 players, and then maybe another all-rounder like a Miller who I thought could have come in and won a game almost single-handedly with a big knock. It just hasn't materialised, and for me, the Proteas as an 11 were never going to be good enough. But if their 5 top players stood up and produced a match-winning performance here or there, they could knock over the best teams on the day. It just hasn't happened, and I mean, it's another World Cup disaster. For me, it's not that hard to take, because I came into this one looking at that squad and going, it's probably not good enough to win, but I didn't think it'd be this bad.
Yeah, why have Quinton de Kock and Faf du Plessis not made any runs? I mean, that's something that needs to be examined. I think the myth of David Miller has now been extinguished. We know he's been on the decline for a number of years, and I don't see him having any future in international cricket, and rightly so. If you can't deliver at a World Cup stage, then we need to move on. I think age will count against Rassie van der Dussen, because he's actually shown a little bit of a needle and someone who's up for the fight. So that's quite sad that at the next World Cup he'll be 34, so he'll be right on the verge of being there and thereabouts. Quinton de Kock, we need to examine why he can fluctuate so dramatically, and Faf will feel massively disappointed. And then the bowling, we've lacked firepower. Kagiso Rabada has run in not at his best. Maybe he's still niggling after the IPL. He hasn't cranked it up as fast as any of the key bowlers in the World Cup, the Trent Bolts yesterday. And we haven't taken wickets up front. We needed wickets early against New Zealand. That didn't happen. We needed wickets early against India. That didn't happen. We need to be 60 for 3, 60 for 4, and then let Tahir come in and play his way. And maybe a little bit disappointed that he didn't take a wicket yesterday, but he certainly put a strangle on them. And there was that phantom nick, which I think the less said about that, the better.
Yeah. So where to from here? Because although they have 3 more games to go in the pool stages, there's not really much to be gained. So looking beyond that, and when they come back to South Africa, will it be a massive clear up? There are going to be at least a handful or more veteran players who have ended kind of their careers on this note, which is really unfortunate. And then from a coaching staff perspective, what do you think will be the changes? Probably Otis Gibson will end his reign here, I'd imagine. Dale Benkenstein, the batting has been woeful in terms of just, like we said, the way they've gone about compiling the innings and shown application. That's been a problem. The fielding's been terrible, so do they now look to bring in a Jonty Rhodes or someone else to get that fielding back to where it should be? And then if Otis does leave, who takes over in terms of getting the bowlers back to where they need to be?
Yeah, I think this could shoot a separate video on this, but in short, CSA is a mess. Otis Gibson will leave after this World Cup. I could definitely see Faf du Plessis retiring. And then, it's sort of end of the road for Dale Steyn with all the injuries. I know he says he wants to come back again, but I think that's a bit far gone. Local cricket's in deep trouble. That's been on decline for a long time. Now there's this talk about going back to a 12-team franchise. You're going to dilute the pool in terms of quality. More players, but less quality players. So we're in deep trouble there. There's going to be a massive clear-out. I think that CSA needs. Can we not call for some elections there and get new people in at the top? I think that's where the fish rots from the top. And that's where most of the behind-the-scenes drama is going on. As in terms of a new coaching team, Mark Boucher stands out head and shoulders as the man to take on the role. And if he can get some of his former colleagues on board to the John T. Rhodes is an excellent idea. He's been working in the IPL. He's a quality coach. Get the short-term consultants, guys who've been there, done that. Get the Jacques Callis in there, who's an IPL coach. Get him in there for a tour or two. To sort of reinvigorate what it means to be a Protea cricket player. Get John T. Rhodes in, get Paddy Upton in, guys who've helped other nations. Get Gary Kirsten in on a short-term consultancy. There's no reason. There's Alan Donald, more about, guys with tons of experience. Get them involved, and we actually need to sort of give this team 18 months to really build a completely new foundation.
Yeah, I mean, I think that just leads us to touch perhaps on Kevin Peterson. He always weighs in at some point or another. He's never someone who's shy to have a word. I don't, really like to pay too much attention to what he says, but he did make the point that the CSA has to now go and look at backing some of their former players and bringing in guys who will add that iconic value and start to mentor and coach players about what it means to be a Protea, like you say, and perhaps from that golden era, looking at getting those guys in. I'm not sure if that's if every former player is necessarily a really good coach or a really good mentor, but perhaps in rebuilding a culture, because to me it's just looked like the team has lacked a bit of culture. The leadership has, I don't know, it hasn't quite been what I think it should be at a World Cup. You had Faf from the outset going, it's not everything to win or lose, it's just cricket. Maybe that was a strategy to fly under the radar, but for me that was never winning talk, and it's never something I would imagine like an Australian or a bullish Indian team or a Virat Kohli saying. For me, just from the outset, there was just something amiss, and then the AB saga, and it's all imploded into a perfect storm. So without being too negative, we have kind of identified some solutions going forward. I don't know if you see any others that perhaps can just give us something to kind of be positive about, or end on a positive note, with a few more games to go.
Yeah, I think the positivity is the Andile Petlekwayo. Okay, he had a bad game yesterday, but everyone's due a bad game. He has turned out to be someone that really will have a very long-term future.
And Rassie van der Dussen.
Rassie van der Dussen will be around for the next few years. Lungi Ngidi and Ramada, once they get back fit, give them a break, they'll come out firing. We have all the nuts and bolts available. How we plug the gap of Amla and Faf du Plessis going forward will be a major concern, but we've done it all before. I think as soon as we can get Mark Boucher into the head coaching role, he's been wildly successful at the Titans, and as soon as we can get him in and let him put his stamp, his brand on the Proteas, I think you'll see that it's not as bad as this performance and as this campaign has made it out to be.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, Wade. Well, yeah, Proteas have crashed and burned again, but we'll touch base again as the last few pool games go on and see what the Proteas can salvage.
Yeah, let's see.